This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Welcome, Talk Catholic, the website.com, your host, Tim Kilcoyne. No agendas here, just the straight and narrow, through Mary to Jesus, the Catholic faith proclaimed and preserved. Hope to see you here every week. TalkCatholic.com with Tim Kilcoyne, and I like to share some of my personal, and I don't think I told you about my Easter experiences on St. Patrick's Day weekend. It started on the Saturday prior, and it was my return debut to the concert hall. I've had the long COVID after effects for a few months going back to December, and thankfully I was kind of shaking in going there because you have these little episodes of shortness of breath and fatigue, and they can come on you at any time. But nevertheless, I was practicing leading up to it, flugelhorn and trumpet. The Holy Spirit got me through in grand style, and we rocked and rolled for the Oblates of Mary Immaculate. Had the pastor of St. William's on the dance floor. That's what we need to see more of. And what was special for me about it in particular were two people, and I don't share this out of any boast, but in recent shows I've alluded to the understanding that in the social services or ministry, especially in general, anything in the educational realm, we often don't see the fruit of our labor. And a couple of people came up to me, one gal who apparently she's a DJ and she books many people for events and all the rest, but she was working for the Oblates, I believe in a kitchen capacity. And she comes over to me after many little concerts I've put on and said, I've seen you many times here. You absolutely are the best that we have. And I book gigs and just want you to know you do a great job. Here I am, wondering if I'm even going to play trumpet again after having this COVID aftermath. And then another brother of the order came over maybe an hour later and said, you make an incredible difference here. And wow, I was looking for consolation, no doubt. And boy, did the Lord provide. We don't do these things in hope for accolades or fanfare. This is why in ministry, the only word you need to know is onward, forward. That's it. Keep going. Whether people raise you up or put you down, you just keep going and do your job, as Bill Belichick used to say. So that was one great joy that lifted me up to the max in the spirit of Easter for sure. And then on St. Patrick's Day, I got a phone call from a guy I have not seen in 42 years, to be exact. I worked at a boys' home, a Nazareth home for boys in Leicester, Mass, and back in 1982. And a fellow counselor called me up to tell me that another fellow counselor had just died. And I pay tribute right now to Mr. Bill Horgan of Worcester fame. There was no other greater St. Joseph kind of guy, father, husband, brother. He was the quintessential Catholic family man, attending to all his responsibilities in sobriety and fear of God. He had a brother, a priest, Father John Horgan, and John is still with us. And Bill's wife, Teresa, reminded me of my mom's sharpness of mind. You could see that she just had that real depth of soul close to the Lord and hadn't lost a step in her upper 80s. And she greeted me as if I had been there yesterday. That's incredible. And regarding Bill spent over 40-something years working in the public school system for special needs children. And when I was with him, that was just another add-on job to his regular 40-hour job. We were doing a 48-hour weekend up at the boys' home. So he was only going about 88 hours on his work schedule at that time for kids with challenges. And he has his own family, going to be missed terribly by many. And so I pay tribute. Bill, I am indebted to you, honored that someone thought of me relative to you and after 42 years later. We only spent a couple of years together. We kept in touch through the years periodically, but clearly it was another acknowledgement, certainly, that remembering matters, doesn't it? And I'm going to miss Bill very much. He was the kind of guy you would go to for that practical wisdom that fathers have, and not to mention Catholic wisdom as well. So we certainly shared many emotional adventures up at the boys' home. Never a dull moment, that's for sure. And I think when this other colleague named Joe called me, I sensed that, well, we were in the wars together. And you never forget it, and how we stayed with it together as a group of counselors. We came in at the same time and more or less left at the same time. And that memory was such a solid bond of Catholic fraternity. So never think twice about the impact that you're having with one another in addition to the people that you serve. And I finally might add, as I did the story of an elderly couple on an airplane, an extremely turbulent, bumpy ride that I was on coming back to New England from the West Coast many years ago, and everybody looked like they were more or less in panic mode. And this elderly couple was serene and just steady, calm in the boat, or calm on the airplane. Well, that was Bill Horgan too, with some of the difficult moments that we encountered in our work. Bill just kept that steady Eddie kind of equilibrium, never too high, never too low. Nothing was going to derail him from the work to do. And that is a man so in the center of God's will. God bless you, Bill. Thank you for your witness, truly. That's my tribute to Mr. Bill Horgan of Worcester, Mass. And may it be noted that he was perfectly laid to rest on the feast of St. Joseph. Alleluia, alleluia. May the angels go with you, Bill. Okay, now we return to our new book review, Answers, Not Promises, by Mother Mary Angelica of EWTN fame. And we first looked at the beginnings of EWTN, and we're still in that first chapter as she's describing exactly how things came to be. The book is loaded with issues that Mother comments on, and we'll get to all of them. But I think her bio is ever significant for good spiritual reading, that's for sure, about what constitutes surrender in our lives spiritually. And she's talking about Morley Safer from 60 Minutes, who was interviewing her one time, and he was curious, how do you own all this stuff? You're a cloistered nun. She said, all of the network, every nut, bolt, and videotape belongs to God. Yes, we have a paid staff of professionals who operate the network, but EWTN is a nonprofit organization. The vow of poverty that the nuns and I make enables us to utilize the technology God makes available to us, knowing all the while that everything is His. And then Mother tells Morley Safer, happily, we are broke. I say happily because being broke is the secret of our success. Being broke, we need help. Needing help, we turn to God. Being constantly broke, we are constantly turning to God. How's that for logic? And going to the bank for your loan. Our message, the message we send out nightly across America, is about loving God on whom we can totally rely. For if God decided to stop using us, we'd be off the air in 2 seconds. Is that faith, ladies and gentlemen? And by the way, I'm always most critical of anybody in the field of religious education, especially ministry in general, who make all kinds of nasty criticisms of free market enterprise. They'd rather be with the socialist state. And Mother Angelica is the perfect example of the entrepreneur, a person that goes out and takes a risk because she believes in what she's offering. That is a very good thing, especially if it's a good product or service, which is Catholic truth being presented in your living room. So please take a good hard look at what this whole country was built upon, the free marketing industry of individuals who risked everything to start small businesses nationwide, family businesses especially. All those Main Streets USA that were made up of just little businesses, but they provided a living, and more so, a moral autonomy of the owner. And his or her family. Who knew his or her personnel. unlike what we have today. But it all started with risk-taking, and Mother shows it clearly here. She says, a lot of people wonder how I ended up founding a monastery in the South and starting a Catholic cable network. I'm delighted in watching God evolve great things out of nothing. I believe firmly in allowing God to open doors and in stepping out in faith when He does so. Often those steps don't make any sense, not to me, and certainly not to a logical or reasonable observer. But I wouldn't want to live my life any other way. It excites me to watch what God is going to do next and to see how He uses the small, seemingly insignificant occurrences in life to build the foundation for great things. It began on a peaceful morning in our Orders Monastery in Canton, Ohio. My assignment for the day was to clean and polish floors. For this job, we used a power machine with hand controls and a rotary brush. By a freak accident, the machine hit a slick spot, and before I could release the control bar, it spun out of control. It threw me against the wall, and I hit exactly at the one place in my spine that had been weakened by a birth defect. The accident left me in great pain. After 2 years, my back had deteriorated to the point where surgery was required. According to the doctor, the odds were only 50-50 that I'd ever walk again. I'll tell you exactly what my reaction was when he told me that. I was petrified. I remember lying in my hospital bed after the doctor explained the details of the intense operation and the risks associated with it. I stared at the gray-white wall. Lord, I said, if you'll let me walk again, I'll build you a monastery in the South. Why the South? Your guess is as good as mine. All I know is that the operation was a success, and after therapy, I began to walk again with the help of a back brace and a leg brace, which are my companions to this day, which of course later she would be cured of. The problem with making a bargain with God is that you have to hold up your end of it. I explained this to my Mother Superior, and that great woman told me to go ahead. I gathered together 5 nuns and began making plans to build a monastery in the South, in Birmingham, Alabama, to be precise, a 2% Catholic population. I don't think anyone would have prepared those lovely Alabamans for our habits, homemade sandals, and the grill that we erected to separate our cloister from visitors. I look back on those days with wonderment. We weren't afraid to ask for anything, and we weren't afraid to get no for an answer. But somehow we were always getting yeses from the people of Birmingham, especially from the Italian community. One man donated all the cement block for the monastery. Another did excavating and blasting of all the rocks surrounding the property. A woman and her daughter donated all the brick. Near the end, when the building frame was up but only half finished and we had run out of money, the workmen lent us their time until we could repay them. And from the start, one very special man, Joe Bruno, has provided us with all our food and groceries. As more people heard about us and our new building, more began to drop by, some out of curiosity, others to see if they could help. Before long, we were receiving extraordinary support from both the Catholic community and other Christian and Jewish congregations of Birmingham. Having made a bargain with God, the nuns and I relied on Him to enable us to fulfill our end of it. Through unexpected people at unexpected moments, He showed us that when we leaned on Him, we could not fall. It was several years later that the Lord showed us that He had something else in mind for the monastery. By the early 1970s, our community had grown to 12 nuns. We bought some printing presses and began a book ministry. Our goal was to send the message of God's goodness everywhere we could, and soon we were distributing over 500,000 books and booklets a month all over the world. The little books were popular right from the beginning, and they led to requests for broadcast interviews, mostly on small independent television stations. One such request came from Channel 38 in Chicago, and I obliged. And that's how I got into television. Channel 38 was a small Christian station perched atop a tall building. There are hundreds of stations in the United States just like it. But for some reason, the moment I set foot in that studio, I said to myself, Lord, I've got to have one of these. This taught me something I've never forgotten. You've got to be very specific when you ask the Lord for something. You never know when He's going to pass by and say, Amen. But what on earth would 12 cloistered nuns do with a television station? It was a ridiculous idea. By now I had learned to accept inspirations, even the crazy-sounding ones. On the ride home from Chicago, I couldn't get the thought out of my mind, Lord, I've just got to have one of those. Just then, my companion's sister Joseph, who was sitting in the back seat of the car we were riding in, spoke up. Mother, The Lord just said to me, tell Mother the media is mine and I give it to her. That was the beginning of Eternal Word Television Network. The struggles He has given us to help us trust Him more, to rely on Him more, and to remember what it is we're doing. And that's how God wants it. The struggles He has given us help us to trust Him more, rely on Him more, and to remember what it is we're doing and why. When we come back, I'll make a few comments relative to these early trials and their continuation on the other side. This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. In the spirit of Easter, Millennium 3, Lord, I lift your name on high. So once again, I think it needs to be highlighted that this early story of Mother Angelica is not the playbook as how to become a parasite or socialist communist. It's not that she didn't have a good idea. She had a great idea, the proclamation of the Catholic faith to all the ends of the earth. And notice that she mentions the paid staff, the professionalism of EWTN. People have their own electric bills and plumbing bills and rent, credit card interest, all to pay. Volunteerism only goes so far back at their own ranch. Let's not forget about health care and pension plans, etc. She didn't sit on the money that was being donated to her. God's total gratuity. Ministry is outreaching. Ministry cannot go inward. It must go outward for it to be authentic. And Mother Angelica wanted themselves to be broke so that they would have to work all the harder to rely on the Lord to bring in the money from any number of sources. I know that Raymond Arroyo, in the other book about this early story, the story of a remarkable nun, he mentioned the gentleman, I think he called Mother from a yacht, and she needed $600K on the spot, and there it was. He provided. So these moments of divine surprise are not unusual for people that have this kind of faith in God's goodness and consolations to take care of you. That you're going out on a limb, no doubt about it, but you have such trust in God's goodness and His designs. Now, granted, you have to ask our Lord very poignantly, as she said, be specific. I'm thinking of an older woman, kind of a motherly woman to me out on the West Coast. Nancy was her name. Now, with the Lord I pray. And she was a Protestant evangelical, but she was always talking about being specific in your prayers. You ask very specifically. You may not get an answer of yes, but make it clear to God what it is that you want, and don't back off or shy away. No, He wants to hear what is it that is your heart's desire. And if it be in His holy will, you'll get it. That's the way it works, believe it or not, in the spiritual life. Again, it doesn't come without its disappointments, future trials and tribulations. And EWTN is constantly encountering such. It's not like since Mother left that it's just been a joyride because it's such a big enterprise. The bigger you get, the more problems you're going to have. But nevertheless, because of its divine cornerstone, founded on adoration of the Holy Eucharist, 24/7, God has provided. It's a wonderful, wonderful story of faith at the maximum degree. And I just like pointing out the parallels with so many moms and dads and select individuals who have that entrepreneurial, free-spirited desire to do something great. And based on your idea, you shoot for the stars and settle for the clouds. If that means going to the bank and getting that loan, indeed. What do you think banks have been created for? Providing loans and going on good ideas. So this is how our country, without question, became so prosperous. And sadly, because our church didn't follow that same spirit of entrepreneurship, we relied on volunteerism, i.e., kind of a subtle disguised form of communism. Volunteerism, right, where nobody ever lasts and has endurance, longevity. Well, you got to keep reinventing the wheel all over again. That's not how to grow, okay? It's to be noted how generous the evangelical community was to her down there, perhaps because they possess this holy entrepreneurial spirit, without question. Notice that she was already being successful in buying a little printing press and pumping out these little booklets on the Catholic faith. She could have rested right there. It was so successful that it was bringing in these opportunities for television interviews. But she didn't settle. She kept pushing for more. It's a good thing. And building upon and creating, not waiting to get. She just assumed that God would provide and she would receive. But that's a different Holy Spirit than thinking you're going to wait for a handout. There is a difference, ladies and gentlemen. And there's too many people in our church who think that it's okay to just get the fish as opposed to being given a fishing pole. We need to be empowered with the tools and the equipment to build and create. And everything that you see happening to us by way of the New World Order and the state takeover of everything, monster corporate oligarchies, totally in domination of the marketplace, that is an attempt to absolutely flush out individual creativity and dignity in the Lord. We have to return to these original roots of what is a form of Catholic subsidiarity, where you know best yourself what the need is, where you are, and you go from there and you build upon it with the people, neighbors, around you. You do not wait for Big Brother to come to your rescue and who claims to know better what your needs are. This is huge, and it's so relevant to where we're at as a country and as a church, because don't think twice that too many of the hierarchy in our church, especially in the Vatican at the current time, they're all okay with the UN making decisions for us, okay? They're okay with New World Order globalists making decisions as to what your best needs and interests are. No, that's not part of the Catholic playbook. And even in the natural realm of things, it's not part of the human playbook. To have a slice of your own pie called private property is a very good thing and gives people dignity. Man prospers spiritually and materially, if it be in God's will, when he is free to own and to create and have that freedom to do so. That is so intrinsic to being a child of God. Let me finish up with Mother's final thoughts in this chapter 1, entitled The Beginning. Christianity is not a feel-good religion, nor is it a prescription for instant happiness. This is a book for all Christians because it is based on the truths that all Christians share. I wrote this book because I feel very strongly that God wants you to be a saint. Don't be surprised and don't dismiss it. Any one of us can be overwhelmed by the presence of God in a beautiful cathedral while a choir is chanting. Any one of us can feel the special warmth of God that flows from an eloquent sermon or an evening prayer service. But it takes holiness, a special grace, to resist choking your spouse when he or she humiliates you in public or lies to you or cheats on you. A woman once said to me, the problem with life is that it is so daily, day in and day out. Even as we are beset with the problems and questions of life, we are called to ask for that special grace of holiness. We are called to reject the empty promises of the world. We are called to embrace the answers that even now lie within our grasp. Why do we search? Because we're called to holiness, and you and I are not there yet. Come seek with me. It isn't an easy road. It wasn't meant to be, but it is our road, and we are called to travel it. And so are we at WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. God bless everyone. Have a wonderful week. Let your light shine. That is what it's all about here at WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. But we need to hear your story. You want your voice to be his voice. That is making the faith known to others. Please, my number is 877-625-3727. Tim Kilcoyne, TalkCatholic.com. St. Mother Teresa told us, your ministry is your work right where you are. Grab on to this microphone. God bless.